The Mary Celeste, the ship whose entire crew vanished. Imagine yourself in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. There is nothing around you, only water, miles and miles of endless ocean. It is December 1872 when the crew of a merchant ship notices another vessel in the distance. At first, there is nothing particularly unusual about it. Its sails are partially set. The ship is moving through the water, but something feels wrong. No one appears to be steering it. There isn't a single person visible on deck. The sailors decide to move closer, and when they finally climb aboard, they discover something that will become one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. The ship is completely abandoned, but the crew is gone. The captain, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 sailors, 10 people in total, no bodies, no clear signs of violence, no obvious explanation. They had simply vanished. The name of the ship was Mary Celeste. 1. The Final Voyage. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant brigantine, approximately 31 meters, just over 100 feet, long. At the time, there was nothing supernatural about her. She wasn't known as a ghost ship. She was simply a working merchant vessel. In November 1872, the Mary Celeste left New York City and began a voyage across the Atlantic toward Genoa, Italy. Her cargo consisted of more than 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. The ship was commanded by Captain Benjamin Briggs. Briggs was not an inexperienced sailor. He was a respected and experienced captain who had spent much of his life at sea. And he trusted the voyage enough to bring his family with him, his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. That detail is important. If Briggs had believed the journey was unusually dangerous, it seems unlikely that he would have brought his wife and young child aboard. Along with the Briggs family were 7 experienced crew members, 10 people in total. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste left New York. None of them would ever be seen again. 2. The Ghost Ship. Almost a month later, on December 5th, another merchant vessel was crossing the Atlantic. Her name was Dei Gratia. The captain, David Morehouse, noticed a ship in the distance behaving strangely. It was sailing erratically. Something about its movement didn't look right. As the Dei Gratia moved closer, the crew recognized the vessel. It was the Mary Celeste. Morehouse knew the ship. Both vessels had left New York around the same period, but now the Mary Celeste was hundreds of miles from where anyone expected her to be, and more importantly, no one was responding to their signals. The Dei Gratia moved closer. A small boarding party crossed over to the mysterious vessel. They climbed onto the deck, and that was when the mystery truly began. 3. What they found. The Mary Celeste had not been destroyed. She had not capsized. There was no obvious evidence of a violent attack, and most importantly, the ship was still seaworthy. Personal belongings remained aboard. There were supplies of food and fresh water. Most of the cargo was still there. The captain's belongings had apparently been left behind. There were no convincing signs that pirates had attacked the vessel, but several things were missing. Most importantly, the ship's lifeboat. Some navigational instruments were also gone, and a line was reportedly found trailing behind the vessel. There was also water inside the ship, not enough to sink her, but enough to potentially frighten a captain who couldn't accurately determine how serious the flooding was. Then there was the ship's log. The final entry was dated November 25th, around 10 days before the Mary Celeste was discovered. At that time, the ship had been sailing near the Azores. After that, nothing. 10 people disappeared from history. 4. Pirates. One of the most obvious explanations was piracy. The Atlantic Ocean in the 19th century could be a dangerous place. Perhaps pirates had attacked the Mary Celeste, killed or kidnapped everyone aboard, and then escaped. But there was one major problem with this theory. Why leave the ship behind? And more importantly, why leave its valuable cargo? Most of the alcohol remained aboard, personal belongings were still there, and investigators found no convincing evidence of a violent struggle. Piracy simply didn't explain what they were seeing, so another darker possibility emerged. 5. Murder. What if someone had killed the crew? Suspicion eventually fell on the men who had discovered the Mary Celeste. The crew of the Dei Gratia had a financial incentive. Under maritime law, sailors who recovered an abandoned vessel could receive a salvage payment. And the Mary Celeste, together with her cargo, was valuable. So perhaps the story was much darker. Maybe the Dei Gratia had encountered the Mary Celeste earlier. Maybe her crew had murdered everyone aboard. Then they could claim they had simply discovered the vessel abandoned and collect the reward. It sounded possible, but there was a problem. There was no convincing evidence, no bodies, no clear signs of a massacre, no proof that the two crews had met before the Mary Celeste was discovered. Investigators never managed to prove murder, and gradually, another possibility became much more likely. Perhaps the crew had abandoned the Mary Celeste voluntarily. But if they did, why? 6. The most important clue. The answer may have been sitting directly beneath their feet. The Mary Celeste was carrying 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. When the cargo was eventually unloaded, 9 barrels were found empty. Those particular barrels were made from a different type of wood, a more porous wood. Alcohol may have slowly leaked from them and evaporated inside the cargo hold, and alcohol vapor can be extremely dangerous. Now, imagine the situation from Captain Briggs's perspective. You are commanding a wooden sailing ship in the middle of the Atlantic. Beneath you are more than 1,700 barrels of alcohol. Then you smell something. Alcohol, strong alcohol fumes. Perhaps you hear a sudden noise from below deck. Perhaps pressure builds inside the hold. Perhaps someone tells you that the cargo may be leaking. You don't know if the ship is about to catch fire. You don't know if an explosion is possible. And standing beside you are your wife and your 2-year-old daughter. What would you do? 7. The captain's decision. Perhaps Captain Briggs gave the order. Abandon ship. But maybe he never intended to abandon the Mary Celeste permanently. Only temporarily. The crew lowered the lifeboat. They took some navigational equipment with them. And they may have attached the lifeboat to the Mary Celeste using a long rope. That could potentially explain the line later found trailing from the ship. The plan would have been simple. Stay a safe distance behind the Mary Celeste. Wait. Watch the ship. And if nothing happened, climb back aboard. But the Atlantic Ocean does not forgive mistakes. It would only take one powerful gust of wind, one large wave, one snapped rope. The Mary Celeste still had sails set. The wind caught them, and suddenly, the ship began moving away. The people inside the lifeboat could do nothing but watch. 100 meters, 200, 500, further and further, until their ship disappeared over the horizon. 8, alone in the Atlantic. Now imagine those 10 people, a small open boat, surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. No radio, no engine, no way to call for help. Their main ship is gone. Perhaps they tried to reach the Azores. Perhaps they encountered bad weather. Perhaps a wave overturned the boat. whatever happened next, none of them survived to tell the story. And there is something deeply unsettling about that possibility. The Mary Celeste survived. The people didn't. The empty ship continued sailing across the ocean, while her captain, his family, and his crew may have been fighting for their lives somewhere behind her. 9. But there's a problem. The alcohol vapor theory sounds convincing, but we still don't know exactly what happened. There is no proof that an explosion occurred. In fact, there was no major fire damage aboard the Mary Celeste. It's possible that Captain Briggs didn't witness an explosion at all. He may simply have feared one. But there is another explanation. Briggs may have believed the ship was sinking. Water had entered the Mary Celeste, and there were questions about the condition of the ship's pumps. If Briggs couldn't accurately determine how much water was inside the vessel, he may have believed the situation was far worse than it really was. Combine that with bad weather, navigation uncertainty, a potentially dangerous cargo, and relatively nearby land. Suddenly abandoning the ship temporarily doesn't seem completely irrational. Briggs may have believed that getting everyone into the lifeboat was the safest decision available, and for a few minutes, maybe it was, until the Mary Celeste sailed away. 10. The legend is born. As the years passed, the story of the Mary Celeste began to change. Newspapers and storytellers added dramatic details. Stories appeared claiming that meals had been left untouched on the table, that cups of coffee were still warm, that the captain's pipe had been left behind, that the entire crew had disappeared in the middle of an ordinary moment, almost as if they had vanished into thin air. But many of these details were not part of the original evidence, and one person played a surprisingly important role in turning the Mary Celeste into a legend: Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who would later become famous as the creator of Sherlock Holmes. In 1884, Doyle published a fictional story inspired by the mystery. His version was dramatic and completely fictional. But over time, some people began confusing details from the story with the real case. The mystery grew, the facts became mixed with fiction, and the Mary Celeste transformed from an abandoned merchant vessel into one of history's most famous ghost ships. 11. So what really happened? More than 150 years later, we still have only clues. Water inside the ship, a missing lifeboat, missing navigational equipment, a line trailing from the vessel, barrels that may have leaked alcohol, and an experienced captain traveling with his own wife and child. Taken together, these clues suggest one possibility. The crew probably didn't abandon the Mary Celeste because they wanted to. They abandoned her because at that exact moment, they believed staying aboard was more dangerous than leaving, and perhaps they were only minutes away from realizing their mistake. If they had waited, they might have discovered the ship wasn't sinking. If the rope had held, they might have climbed back aboard. If the wind had blown differently, perhaps nobody today would know the name Mary Celeste. But something went wrong. The ship continued sailing, without her captain, without her crew, without a single living person aboard: Benjamin Briggs, his wife, Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, and the 7 crew members of the Mary Celeste were never seen again. No confirmed remains were ever recovered. Their lifeboat was never conclusively found, and no one has ever been able to prove exactly what happened during those mysterious days in November 1872. Maybe it was simply a tragic chain of events, a leaking cargo, a frightened captain, a temporary evacuation, a broken rope, and one terrible decision made at exactly the wrong moment. Or maybe one crucial piece of the story is still missing. The Mary Celeste was found, her cargo was found, her belongings were found, the ship herself survived. Only one thing was missing: every single person aboard, and that is why, more than 150 years later, the Mary Celeste remains one of the most haunting